The polished marble floors of St. Catherine's Private Hospital gleamed under the bright fluorescent lights as Dr. Nathan Cross stepped out of the elevator on his first day as Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery. At 38, he was the youngest person ever to hold this position at the prestigious Boston Medical Center. His designer shoes clicked against the floor as he walked toward his new corner office, briefcase in one hand, coffee in the other. The hospital administrator had told him to arrive early to familiarize himself with the facility before the day's shift began. As Nathan rounded the corner near the cardiac wing, he nearly collided with a woman pushing a cleaning cart. She was in her late 60s, with silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing the hospital's standard green janitorial uniform. Her name tag read Rosa Martinez, Night Custodial Staff. "Watch where you're going," Nathan said sharply, stepping back to avoid the mop bucket. "These hallways are for medical personnel in the morning. You should have your cleaning done by now. From which city in the world are you watching this story unfold today? If tales of hidden expertise and humbling revelations resonate with you, consider subscribing for more stories where assumptions prove dangerously wrong." Rosa looked up at him with calm brown eyes that seemed to hold secrets. She didn't apologize or explain, just quietly moved her cart to the side of the hallway and continued her work. Nathan shook his head in annoyance and walked on, dismissing the encounter immediately. He had more important things to think about than cleaning staff. Over the next 3 months, Nathan encountered Rosa almost every morning. She worked the night shift, arriving at 10 p.m. and leaving at 6 a.m., always quietly moving through the hallways with her cart, emptying trash bins, mopping floors, and wiping down surfaces. The other hospital staff greeted her warmly, nurses would stop to chat, residents would wave hello, even some of the older attendings seemed to know her by name. But Nathan never bothered to acknowledge her beyond an occasional annoyed glance when her cart was in his way. "Dr. Cross, you really should be nicer to Rosa," said Dr. Elena Martinez, one of the senior cardiologists, after watching Nathan rudely tell Rosa to move faster one morning. "She's been with this hospital for over 30 years. Nathan scoffed. 30 years of pushing a mop doesn't earn my respect, Elena. Excellence in medicine does. That's why I'm here, to bring this cardiac department into the modern era with actual skilled professionals." Elena's face tightened with disapproval, but she said nothing more. Nathan had a reputation for brilliance in the operating room, but also for arrogance that bordered on cruelty toward anyone he deemed beneath him. He treated nurses like servants, dismissed residents' questions, and now, apparently, couldn't even show basic courtesy to custodial staff. One evening in late November, everything changed. Nathan had stayed late to review surgical notes for a complex procedure scheduled for the next morning, a coronary artery bypass on a 52-year-old patient named Michael Chen. The surgery was routine for someone of Nathan's skill level, but it was high profile because Michael was a prominent tech CEO whose case had attracted media attention. Nathan wanted everything perfect. At 11:47 p.m., Nathan was walking through the empty cardiac wing toward the parking garage when he heard a commotion coming from one of the patient rooms. He rushed toward the sound and found 2 night nurses standing helplessly outside Michael Chen's room, their faces pale with panic. "What's going on?" Nathan demanded. "It's Mr. Chen," gasped Nurse Jennifer Park, a young RN who looked terrified. "He's having a massive MI, myocardial infarction. We've called the on-call surgical team, but they're at least 25 minutes away," and Nathan pushed past her into the room. Michael Chen was clutching his chest, his face gray and covered in sweat. The heart monitor showed a deadly rhythm, ventricular tachycardia that would soon deteriorate into ventricular fibrillation and then cardiac arrest. This man needed emergency surgery immediately, or he would die within minutes. "Get me a surgical team now," Nathan barked at the nurses. "We don't have 25 minutes. "I'm sorry, Dr. Cross," Jennifer stammered, "but there's no one here. The on-call team is dealing with a trauma case at County General. There are only surgical backup tonight because of the flu outbreak. Everyone else is out sick or already scrubbed in somewhere else." Nathan's mind raced. He was a brilliant surgeon, but he couldn't perform open-heart surgery alone. He needed an anesthesiologist, a surgical nurse, a perfusionist to run the heart-lung machine, and at least one other surgeon to assist. Without a team, attempting surgery would be malpractice and probably futile. Just then, Rosa appeared in the doorway, still in her janitor's uniform, her cleaning cart visible in the hallway behind her. She looked at the monitors, at Michael Chen's deteriorating condition, and then directly at Nathan. "Move him 2 or 3, she said quietly but firmly. "I'll scrub in." Nathan stared at her in disbelief. "What? You're a janitor. Get out of here. This is a medical emergency." "I'm aware," Rosa replied, her voice steady. "I'm also a cardiac surgeon. Or I was, for 30 years. Now move him, or he dies." There was something in her eyes, absolute certainty and deep competence, that cut through Nathan's shock. Jennifer Park, who had been listening to this exchange with wide eyes, suddenly spoke up. "Dr. Cross, I've heard stories about Rosa. Some of the older nurses say she used to be." "I don't care what stories people tell," Nathan interrupted. But then Michael Chen let out a terrible sound and the heart monitor's alarm screamed as his heart rhythm became even more erratic. Nathan had perhaps 90 seconds to make a decision: trust his medical judgment alone and watch this patient die, or trust this impossible claim from a woman in a janitor's uniform. "Get him 2 or 3, Nathan heard himself say. Then he looked at Rosa. "If you're lying about being a surgeon, I'll have you arrested." "If I'm lying," Rosa replied calmly, already moving to help with the bed, "then you can watch your patient die while you wait for someone else. It's your choice." They raced down the hallway, nurses scrambling to prepare the operating room. As they moved, Rosa called out instructions in perfect medical terminology, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. "Jennifer, set up for an emergency cab, we'll need the bypass machine ready. Call anesthesia and tell them to get here immediately, but we start in 4 minutes with or without them. Maria," she said to the other nurse, "prep the surgical tray, standard cardiac approach, but also have the emergency thoracotomy kit ready in case we need to crack the chest faster." In the OR, Nathan watched in stunned silence as Rosa scrubbed in with practiced efficiency. Her hands moved with absolute precision, the decades-old muscle memory taking over. When she was gowned and gloved, she stood across the operating table from Nathan, and for the first time, he saw her not as a janitor but as what she truly was, a surgeon. The anesthesiologist arrived and put Michael under. The clock was ticking. Rosa's hands moved faster than Nathan had ever seen, making the initial incision with perfect confidence. "Talk me through what you're doing," Nathan said, partly to verify she knew what she was doing, and partly because he was still processing the impossibility of this situation. "Standard median sternotomy," Rosa replied without looking up, her hands never pausing. "We're going through the breastbone to access the heart. See this?" She indicated a specific area. "The left anterior descending artery is completely occluded. We need to bypass it immediately. How many of these have you done?" Nathan asked, now assisting her with retractors, falling into the rhythm of surgery despite his shock. 2,347, Rosa answered. "Give or take a few." "I stopped counting after 2,000. For the next 3 hours, Nathan Cross witnessed surgical mastery that exceeded his own considerable skills. Rosa's hands moved with the confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime at the operating table. She called out instructions, guided Nathan through techniques he'd only read about in textbooks, and maintained perfect calm even when Michael's blood pressure dropped dangerously low. There was a moment, about 90 minutes in, when everything went wrong. Michael's heart stopped completely during the bypass procedure, a complication that could be fatal. Nathan froze for just a second, but Rosa's voice cut through his panic. "Cross-clamp the aorta," she ordered. "Now. Internal defibrillation, 20 joules. Nathan, I need you to focus. You're a good surgeon. Prove it." Her words snapped him back. They worked together, Nathan following Rosa's lead, and after 4 attempts, Michael's heart started beating again. When they finally closed the chest at 3:15 a.m., Michael Chen's vital signs were stable. He would live. Rosa stepped back from the table, pulled off her surgical mask, and for the first time in hours, looked directly at Nathan. "Dr. Cross," she said quietly, "I need to finish cleaning the third-floor hallway before my shift ends at 6. Unless you need me to write up the surgical notes." Nathan couldn't speak. He just shook his head, watching as this woman who had just performed a miracle surgery calmly removed her surgical gown and walked out of the OR, presumably to return to her cleaning cart. The next morning, Nathan sat in the hospital administrator's office, still wearing his surgical scrubs from the night before. Across from him sat Dr. Helen Morrison, the hospital's CEO, and Rosa Martinez, who now wore clean janitorial clothes and looked exactly as she had every other morning. Nathan had dismissively walked past her. "Tell me I didn't imagine last night," Nathan said, his voice hoarse from exhaustion and disbelief. "You didn't imagine it," Dr. Morrison replied. "Dr. Rosa Martinez is one of the finest cardiac surgeons who ever worked at this hospital. She was Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery here for 15 years before she retired." Nathan looked at Rosa. "Then why are you working as a janitor?" Rosa was quiet for a moment, her hands folded in her lap. After her retirement, Dr. Morrison explained gently, Dr. Martinez lost her husband to cancer. They had been married for 40 years. She found that being at home was too painful, too quiet. The hospital was the only place that felt like family to her. "So I came back," Rosa said softly. "But I didn't want the pressure of surgery anymore. I just wanted to be useful, to be around people, to keep my hands busy. The night custodial position was available, and it gave me purpose without the weight of holding people's lives in my hands every day." Nathan felt something unfamiliar, shame. "For 3 months, I've treated you like you were invisible," he said. "Like you didn't matter." Rosa met his eyes. "I know what I look like in this uniform, Dr. Cross. I know what assumptions people make. Most of the time, I prefer it that way. I didn't want recognition or respect based on what I used to be. I just wanted to do honest work and be left alone. But last night," Nathan pressed, "you jumped back into surgery like you never left." "Last night, a man needed a surgeon," Rosa replied simply. "So I was a surgeon. Today, the hallways need cleaning, so I'm a janitor. It's not complicated." "But it is," Nathan insisted. "You saved Michael Chen's life. You performed surgery that I couldn't have done alone. She waved her hand, cutting him off. "You would have managed, Dr. Cross. You're skilled enough. You just would have needed more time, and Mr. Chen didn't have time. I happen to be here. That's all. Dr. Morrison leaned forward. "Nathan, what happened last night stays confidential. Dr. Martinez doesn't want publicity, and frankly, the hospital can't officially acknowledge that a janitor performed surgery, even though that janitor is also a retired surgeon." Nathan nodded slowly, but something was burning inside him, not anger, but a desperate need to understand. "Dr. Martinez, Rosa," he said, using her name for the first time, "teach me." "What?" Rosa looked surprised. "Teach me what you know," Nathan said. "I'm a good surgeon, maybe even great, but you're a master. I've been so arrogant, thinking my youth and modern techniques made me superior. Last night showed me I have so much to learn. And you want me to teach you?" Rosa asked. "While I mop floors?" "No," Nathan said firmly. "I want you back in the OR where you belong. Come back as a consulting surgeon. Share your knowledge with the whole department. Don't hide your gift behind a mop and bucket." Rosa shook her head. "I told you, I don't want that life anymore." "Then consult," Nathan pressed. "A few hours a week. Teaching rounds with the residents. Mentoring the surgical staff. You can still do your janitorial work if that's what brings you peace, but please don't let your expertise disappear." For the first time, Nathan saw a flicker of interest in Rosa's eyes. Dr. Morrison jumped on it. "Rosa, you know I've been trying to convince you to come back in some capacity for years. Maybe this is the compromise. A few teaching hours a week. You'd be doing the hospital, and the field of cardiac surgery, an enormous service." Rosa was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Nathan with an expression that was both stern and kind. "If I do this, Dr. Cross, you need to understand something. My janitorial work is not beneath me. No honest work is beneath anyone. If you've learned anything from last night, it should be that a person's value isn't determined by their job title or the clothes they wear." Nathan felt his throat tighten. He'd built his entire career on hierarchy, on believing that his position as a surgeon made him more important than others. Now a woman in a janitor's uniform had revealed the emptiness of that belief. "You're right," he said quietly. "I've been a fool. And an ass." Rosa's lips twitched in the smallest smile. "Well, admitting it is a start." Over the next 6 months, St. Catherine's Hospital transformed. Rosa agreed to teach 3 mornings a week, conducting surgical rounds where residents and attendings alike learned from her decades of experience. She demonstrated techniques that weren't in any textbook, shared insights about patient care that came from thousands of hours at the operating table, and most importantly, taught young doctors about humility. But she also kept her janitorial position, working her night shifts and taking quiet pride in keeping the hospital clean. Nathan became her most dedicated student. He arrived early to her teaching rounds, asked questions he once would have been too proud to ask, and slowly began to understand that true expertise came not from credentials but from experience, wisdom, and the willingness to keep learning. The dynamic between them evolved into an unexpected friendship. Sometimes, Nathan would find Rosa in the hallways late at night during her custodial rounds, and they would discuss complex surgical cases while she emptied trash cans and he held the door open for her cart. One night, about 4 months after the emergency surgery, Nathan found Rosa sitting on a bench in the hospital's chapel, her cleaning cart parked nearby. She wasn't crying, but her eyes were distant. Nathan sat beside her quietly. "Bad day?" he asked. "Anniversary," Rosa replied. "Henry died 2 years ago today." Nathan had learned about Dr. Henry Martinez, also a surgeon, also brilliant, also devoted to this hospital. They had been a legendary team, both in the OR and in life. "I'm sorry," Nathan said. "He must have been remarkable." "He was," Rosa smiled sadly. "After he died, I couldn't be in our house. Everything reminded me of him. I tried traveling, tried visiting my children, but everywhere I went, I felt like half of me was missing. Coming back to this hospital as a janitor, it sounds crazy, but it was the only thing that helped." "Why?" Nathan asked gently. "Because Henry and I met in this hospital," Rosa explained. "We trained together, worked together, saved lives together. When I'm here, even just cleaning the floors, I feel close to him. I walk the same hallways we walked. I see the same views from the windows. It's not about the work I do. It's about being in the place where we were happiest." Nathan understood then. Rosa wasn't hiding or wasting her talent. She was healing in the only way she knew how. The hospital staff had begun to learn Rosa's true identity, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. Nurses who had always been kind to her now understood why she sometimes offered unusual medical insights. Residents who had seen her teaching rounds looked at her with awe when they passed her in the hallways. And slowly, Rosa began to heal. The janitorial work still brought her peace, but teaching surgery reconnected her with a part of herself she thought she'd lost with Henry. One morning, Nathan was observing Rosa teach a complex procedure when Dr. Elena Martinez, no relation to Rosa, despite the shared last name, approached him in the observation gallery. "You've changed," Elena said. 3 months ago, you were the most arrogant surgeon in this hospital. Now you're actually listening to people." Nathan smiled ruefully. "I had a wake-up call. A janitor performed surgery that saved my patient's life and showed me how little I actually know. Best lesson in humility I ever received. Elena laughed. You know the whole hospital is talking about Dr. Martinez's story, right? The legendary cardiac surgeon who came back as a janitor, then emerged from retirement to save a life. Good, Nathan said. People should know that expertise doesn't always come with a title, and that the most important people in a hospital aren't always the ones with the biggest offices. That afternoon, Nathan found himself in the hospital administrator's office again, but this time he'd requested the meeting. Dr. Morrison, Nathan began, I want to propose something. We should create an endowed chair in cardiac surgery in honor of Dr. Rosa Martinez and her late husband Dr. Henry Martinez. Dr. Morrison looked intrigued. Go on. We raise funds to support innovative cardiac research and training, Nathan explained. But more than that, we create a mentorship program where experienced surgeons, retired or not, can teach the next generation. We formalize what Rosa has been doing informally. Show the medical community that wisdom and experience are just as valuable as cutting-edge technology. Dr. Morrison smiled. I love it. But you should present this idea to the board yourself. And Nathan? Yes. You've become the kind of doctor this hospital needs. One who understands that medicine is about more than just technical skill. Thank you, Nathan said. But I had a good teacher. 6 months after the emergency surgery, the hospital held a gala to announce the Martinez Cardiac Surgery Fellowship. Michael Chen, the patient whose life Rosa and Nathan had saved, attended as the event's major donor, contributing $5 million to the program. Rosa initially refused to attend the gala, saying she didn't want the attention. But Nathan convinced her with a simple argument: Henry would have wanted her there. The ballroom was filled with surgeons, hospital staff, donors, and medical students. When Rosa was introduced, she walked onto the stage wearing not a fancy gown, but her green janitorial uniform. The audience stirred in confusion until Nathan stepped to the microphone. Dr. Rosa Martinez wears this uniform tonight, Nathan explained, because she wants everyone to understand that there is dignity in all honest work. For the past year, she has both taught cardiac surgery and cleaned hospital floors. She has shown us that a person's worth isn't defined by their job title but by their character, their knowledge, and their willingness to serve others. Rosa took the microphone, her voice steady and strong. When I lost my husband, I lost my way, she said. I came back to this hospital as a janitor because I needed purpose, and cleaning gave me that. But I learned something important: there is no such thing as unimportant work. The person who mops the floor keeps infection from spreading just as surely as the surgeon's scalpel saves lives. We all matter. We all contribute. She looked directly at Nathan. Dr. Cross taught me something too, though he probably doesn't realize it. He taught me that it's never too late to stop hiding. I was using my janitorial work as a shield, protecting myself from the pain of being a surgeon without my husband beside me. But these past months, teaching and mentoring, I've learned that Henry would want me to share what we learned together. This fellowship honors not just our names, but everyone who has dedicated their lives to healing others. The applause was thunderous. Nathan watched from the side of the stage, his eyes bright. After the ceremony, he found Rosa back in her janitorial uniform, preparing to start her night shift. You're really going to keep cleaning? He asked, smiling. Of course, Rosa replied. These floors won't mop themselves. Besides, I like the quiet of the night shift. It gives me time to think. What do you think about? Nathan asked. Rosa looked around the hospital hallway, her expression peaceful. I think about all the lives saved in these rooms. I think about Henry and how proud he'd be of what we're building. And I think about you, Dr. Cross, and how you've grown from an arrogant young surgeon into a true healer. Nathan felt his throat tighten. Thank you, Rosa. For everything. She patted his shoulder with a gloved hand. Thank you for seeing past the uniform. Now go home. Get some rest. You have a teaching round with me in the morning, and I don't accept excuses for tardiness. As Nathan walked toward the parking garage, he passed the chapel where he'd once found Rosa grieving. On impulse, he went inside and sat in the same bench where they'd talked. He thought about how his life had changed in the past year. How his arrogance had been replaced by humility. How his technical skill had been enhanced by wisdom learned from a master. How a chance encounter with a janitor had transformed him into a better doctor and a better person. 3 years later, the Martinez Fellowship had become one of the most prestigious cardiac surgery training programs in the country. Rosa taught regularly, finally retiring from her janitorial position, though the hospital staff still occasionally found her mopping floors late at night when she couldn't sleep. Nathan had become not just a skilled surgeon but a beloved teacher, passing on Rosa's lessons about humility and service to a new generation of doctors. And on the wall of the cardiac wing hung 2 portraits, Dr. Henry Martinez and Dr. Rosa Martinez, side by side, just as they'd been in life. Below the portraits was a plaque with a simple inscription, "Excellence wears many uniforms. True wisdom recognizes it in all its forms." The hospital became known not just for cutting-edge cardiac care but for something more important, a culture that valued every person, from the CEO to the custodial staff, recognizing that healing required not just skilled hands but humble hearts. And sometimes, late at night, if you walked through the quiet hallways of St. Catherine's Hospital, you might see an elderly woman in a green uniform pushing a cleaning cart, and if you looked closely, you might notice that she moved with the grace and precision of a master surgeon. Because Rosa Martinez had learned the most important lesson of all: you don't stop being who you are just because you change your uniform. And neither does anyone else. Have you ever dismissed someone because of their job? Have you ever assumed that the person mopping the floor or serving your coffee couldn't possibly have expertise that exceeds your own? Dr. Nathan Cross learned the hard way that the janitor pushing a cleaning cart might be the only person in the building who can save a life when it matters most. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected teachers. And sometimes, the people we overlook are exactly the ones we need most.